Hi friends, welcome to this session on Models of Teaching and Introduction. We are familiar with theories of learning. In the field of learning, a number of theories have been developed by the researchers, but the field of teaching has relatively been neglected by them. As a result, there is hardly any theory of teaching. In 1963, Gagne explains that the relative neglect of theories of teaching has taken place because of the researchers' assumption that if there is a satisfactory theory of learning, then the teachers can act upon that theory for instruction in the classroom. Teaching is thus viewed as a mirror image of learning. Smith, however, pointed out that there is a difference between the process of teaching and learning. In the light of this assertion, there aroused a need for a separate theory of teaching with a view to maximizing learning on the part of pupils. Therefore, the focus of educational psychology has been given a bias to teaching also because learning theories alone cannot solve the limitations of present day teaching. What is teaching? Let us consider the concept of teaching. Teaching is one of the oldest activities in the history of human civilization. The act of communicating human experience in the formal situation is called teaching, and along with its increasing complexity, it has become the subject of human inquiry. Educationalists, philosophers, sociologists, psychologists and scientists at different periods of time have tried their best to understand the nature of this human activity called teaching. Based on their observations and experience, they have defined teaching in various ways. Teaching is a set of activities which is defined and performed to achieve certain objectives in terms of changing people's behavior. In general, it is thought of as a process of transferring knowledge of the subject to the learners. Teaching as a process has been highlighted by Bruce Joyce and Marcia Weil in their definition. Teaching is a process by which the teacher and students create a shared environment including set of values and beliefs which in turn color their views of reality. This definition adds a new dimension to teaching, namely the importance of teaching learning environment which is created out of the interaction between teacher and students. Teaching is a process of a series of activities which takes place in a logical sequence. Therefore, teaching in the classroom does not take place in vacuum. It involves certain components. There may be three major components involved in the teaching act. These are the teacher, the student and the curriculum, which implies the existence of strategies commonly known as methods of teaching. All these components of teaching have equally important role in the process of teaching. But in the teaching process, the methods of teaching have a significant role in the achievement of instructional objectives. Therefore, it is worthwhile to study the nature of the methods of teaching. Methods of teaching have been viewed in different ways by philosophers, psychologists, educationalists and technologists in different historical periods. So, a large number of methods of teaching have been emerged. The development brought about in the learners through any method or learning process is expected to possess three qualities. They are totality, sustainability and transferability. Thus, an individual is expected to attain development in all aspects of human life by getting educated. This total development has to include progressive changes in the various domains such as cognitive, linguistic, emotional, social, personal, cultural, personality related, attitudinal, etc. Such changes occurring in the individual should remain all over his life, of course, with changes to suit the changes occurring in the society. Moreover, the individual should exhibit the ability to transfer the results of learning while facing new situations in life. Teachers all over the world, including in our own country, followed fixed ways of teaching in the classroom. These methods fail to achieve a variety of instructional objectives for which teaching is designed and performed and the above mentioned qualities. Also, peoples have multi-dimensional personalities and different learning styles. The common implication of both these facts is that the teacher should use different strategies of teaching to match the objectives of teaching and different learning styles and personalities of students. Attempts have been made by researchers to match different approaches, strategies or styles of teaching with objectives of instruction and learning styles of pupils. Competency in teaching depends on the capacity to reach out to differing children and to create a rich and multi-dimensional environment for them. Models of teaching emerged out of the search by Joyce and Weil to find a variety of approaches as strategies of teaching to match the various learning styles. This multiple approach in the methodology of instruction in turn has resulted in formulation of variety of instructional design, each of which has been designated as a distinct model of teaching. Concept of model of teaching. The word model is used by peoples in different ways in different contexts. Engineers and architects use the word model for dams, projects, buildings, machines, etc. They also carry out the construction work according to the plan of that can envisage in the model. Thus, a model of a bridge does not guide an engineer to construct a building. It is meant for a particular purpose. In the teaching learning process, models have the same interpretation as they have in the construction of dams, buildings, etc. Thus, model of teaching like plans, patterns or blueprints presents the steps necessary to bring about a desired outcome. According to Joyce and Weil, a teaching model is a pattern or plan which can be used to shape curriculum or course, to design instructional materials and to guide a teacher's action. Apart from the above uses, it creates the necessary environment which facilitates teaching learning process. Teaching models are just instructional designs. They describe the processes of specifying and producing particular environmental situations which cause the student to interact in such a way those specific changes occur in his behavior. Thus, a model of teaching consists of guidelines for designing educational activities and environment. It specifies ways of teaching and learning and the step-by-step procedure that leads to specific learning outcomes. A model of teaching is designed to achieve a particular set of objectives. It is not a substitute to any teaching skill. Rather, it creates the conducive teaching learning environment in which teachers teach more effectively, making the teaching act more systematic and efficient. Characteristics of models of teaching. Models of teaching are some sort of plans or guidelines or patterns or strategies of teaching. Are systematic procedures to mold the behavior of the learners. Specify the learning outcomes in terms of observable and measurable performance of learners. Specify in definite terms the environmental conditions under which a student's response should be observed. Specify the criteria of acceptable performance expected from the student. Functions of models of teaching. Models of teaching have three major functions in the teaching learning procedure. These are designing of curriculum or course of study, development and selection of instructional material, guiding teachers' activity in the teaching learning process. Families of models. Joyce and Weil classified models of teaching into four families: information processing family, personal family, social interaction family, and behavioral family. Information processing family. Its main focus is to help students learn to process information to improve logical thinking process, to develop critical thinking, etc. This family of models aims at fostering information processing ability of the learners. Joyce and Weil define information processing as the way people handle stimuli from the environment, organize data, sense problems, generate concepts and solutions to problems, and employ verbal and nonverbal symbols. It involves intellectual skills required to analyze information, which include the ability to make observation, to generalize, to credit, and to explain events. Though information processing models are concerned with intellectual skills and acquisition of knowledge by the students, they also contribute to realization of personal and social goals. The models which belong to this family are the concept attainment model by Bruner and Hilda Taba to develop inductive reasoning, mental inductive process, and understanding of concepts and principles. Inquiry training model by Richard Suchman to develop individual competencies to achieve the social objective. The advanced organizer model by David Oswell to understand concepts and facts and to make the concept purposeful and interesting. Cognitive growth development model by Jean Piaget to develop general intelligence and logic, social and moral development. Biological science inquiry model by Joseph J. Schwab to develop understanding of research methodology to think logically on social problems. Personal models. Main focus of these models is to develop internal resources to see things in new or different ways. Models of this family are designed to develop self-concept, self-esteem, and self-actualization of peoples. They emphasize the process by which individuals construct and organize their unique reality. They are more concerned with human feelings and emotions and try to move towards the development of an integrated functioning self. It believes that education is meant to enhance personal happiness by giving the learner the opportunity for self-expression. The family gives importance to individual perspective and seeks to encourage productive independence, so that people become increasingly self-aware and responsible for their own destinies. Personal models focuses on the development of self-actualizing individual who understand themselves and can take charge of their future. The models which belong to this family are non-directive teaching model by Carl Rogers to develop self-learning by auto-instructions, self-research and self-understanding. Synetics teaching model by William Gordon to develop creative competencies for problem solving. Awareness training model by W.S. Fitz to develop individual competencies and mutual relations. Classroom meeting model by William Glaser to develop skills of self-understanding and capacities of dutifulness. Conceptual system model by David F. Hunt to adjust with the environment with flexibility in the personality. Social interaction models. The main focus of these models is to teach social skills and communication. This family of models emphasizes the relationship of the individual to society or to other persons. They focus on the development of capabilities for interpersonal relationships. Thus, they stress on the processes by which reality is socially negotiated. Consequent models from this family give priority to the development of social skills which help individuals to engage in a democratic process and to work productively in the society. When we work together, we generate collective energy called synergy. The social models of teaching are constructed to take advantage of this phenomenon. Developing cooperative relationship in a classroom is one of the characteristic features of these models. It gives emphasis on the achievement of social goals and processes for achieving them. The models which belong to this family are Group Investigation Model by John Dewey and Herbert to develop democratic abilities, use of knowledge and skills in life of individual and society. Jurisprudential Inquiry Model by Donald Oliver and James P. Shaver to solve problems on the basis of information and reasoning power. Laboratory Training Model by Bethel and Main to develop group skills, individual capacities and adjustment. Social Simulation Model, Social Inquiry Model and Role Playing Model by Benjamin Cox, Bryan to develop competencies of problem solving and adjustment. Behavioral models. Main focus of these models is to change the behavior of the learner, to transmit culture by teaching skills and knowledge. All the models in this family have a common theoretical base known as behavioral theory. In these models, the emphasis is on changing the external behavior of the learner and describes them in terms of visible behavior rather than the underlying psychological structure and unobservable behavior. Skinner is the chief exponent of this model. One of the common characteristics of these behavioral models is that they break down the learning tasks in a series of small sequenced behaviors. The models included in the family are Direct Instruction Model by Siegfried Engelmann. Teaching and learning can be successful when given effective programs and instructional delivery techniques. Operant Conditioning Model by B.F. Skinner to achieve the objectives of lower level of cognitive domain on the basis of individual differences. Fundamental elements of a model. Joyce and Weil suggested some concepts in the procedure of the implementation of any instructional model. These concepts are focus, syntax, social system, support system, principles of reaction and instructional and nurturant effect. Let us have a detailed look at each of these elements. Focus. Focus refers to the goals or objectives of the model. Focus of each model is different. For example, the goal of inquiry training model is to develop in students the skills necessary to raise questions and search out their answers. Syntax. The word means grammar, sentence structure, language rule, etc. It describes how the various phases in the development of a lesson are sequenced when the model is translated into action. It indicates how a lesson based upon a particular model begins, through what phases it progresses and how the goals are attained. the phases involved in different models will differ. The clear sequence of activities is definitely identified in syntax. Social system. Every learning situation involves interaction of members associated with it. The class or learning environment is a miniature society in which the teacher and the learners are the main components. The relationship between the teacher and the learners as the role played by each in the classroom activities defines the nature of social system. The social system describes the role and the relationship of students and teachers. In some models, the teacher gives the course of action to follow. Otherwise, the activities of pupils are controlled by a predetermined structuring by the teacher. Such a social system is said to be highly structured. That is, in highly structured social system, teacher is the center of activity or it is teacher centered. If the teacher and the students are jointly deciding the course of action, the system is moderately structured. It gives equal freedom for teachers and students. Here, the teacher and students share the activities more or less equally. In certain other models, active participants are students. That is, the teacher withdraws to maximum possible and free interaction among learners will determine the course of action in the learning environment. This may be said to be low structured. Low structured social system is student centered. Here, the course of action is not predetermined. In short, the nature of the structure of a lesson depends upon the roles, relationships, norms and the nature of activities of the teacher and the learner. Principles of reaction. This is an extension of social system. This defines the nature of reaction expected from the teacher to every action of the child. It tells the teacher how to regard the learner and how to respond. Each model has its own typical principles of reaction. In short, principles of reaction give guidance to the teacher as to how he is expected to react to each activity of the learner. Support system. Every model of teaching requires some conditions and facilities for the realization of the goal. Support system indicates the supporting conditions necessary for the proper functioning of the model. It refers to the requirements in addition to human skills, capacities and technical facilities essential for a learning activity. Example, teaching acts or trained leadership. Any environmental facilities other than book, blackboard, etc., cooperation of various agencies from the society, suitable hardware and software and suitable evaluation devices form the support system. Instructional and nurturant effect. A model when used has two different effects, namely instructional effect and nurturant effect. Instructional effect refers to the direct effect of a model of teaching. Also, it is purposefully planned by the teacher, but nurturant effect is the indirect or long-lasting effect formed as a byproduct of teaching. Instructional effect is in respect of knowledge, skills and capabilities. Nurturant effects develop out of the experiences of the environment created by the model. Example, hatred developed from competition, obedience to authority from discipline. The proper evaluation of a model must evaluate these two effects also. Researchers have developed various instructional strategies to realize the instructional goals. They have transformed existing knowledge in the learning and teaching process into models of teaching which can be used by teachers in the teaching learning process for realizing different instructional objectives. By using models of teaching, learning environments and instructional experiences can be constructed, sequenced or delivered. Models of teaching are critical pieces to instructional planning and delivery as they help educators to gain needed insights into the entire process of teaching and learning. Now, let us summarize the session. This module discusses the origin, structuring and concepts of models of teaching. Characteristics and essential elements of a model like focus, syntax, support system, social system and instructional and nurturant effects are enumerated in detail. Characteristics of various families of models of teaching are detailed. Members of each family, their proponents and their aims and applications are also discussed. Before we move on to the next session, please try to answer the following questions. Briefly explain the fundamental elements of a model. Explain the characteristics of a model of teaching. Distinguish between instructional and nurturant effects of a model. Explain the principles of reaction of a model. Here are some books for your further references. Ways of Teaching by Hyman, R.T., J.B. Lippincott Company, New York. Models of Teaching, 8th edition, Bruce Joyce, Marsha Wales and Calhoun E., Englewood Cliffs, Prentice Hall. Thank you for watching this session. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.